to the main event. This evening, your two contenders coming in at 195 pounds, Dane Savory. And fighting him, your returning champion, also coming in at 195 pounds,
It can seem like that sometimes, a little bit like it's you versus you, the good versus the bad versions of yourself. The Apostle Paul talks a lot about fighting in the flesh and fighting the flesh, and sometimes that can be a hard concept to understand for us. Some of us understand it just fine, but Apostle Paul says in Romans, I'm going to read Romans between verses 15 and 20. So verse 15 says, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. He continues in verse 19 and 20 to say, for I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it. What's that mean? Come again? Paul recognizes and shares in Romans that we have things within us that we want to do, and we want to do genuinely good things. And yet there are sometimes bad things that we also want to do. We don't want to do, but I guess we do them anyways. Paul shares a very honest truth, that it's hard. As humans, we are susceptible to sinful desires within us or within our flesh. We wake up every day and we get in the ring with our sinful desires. However, that's a hard fight because we're fighting ourselves. We know our own weaknesses and we know our own strengths, and we know how to trip ourselves up sometimes. We might have certain areas where, we're strong, bastion of resistance, but then we have others where, it doesn't take that much to just trip us up. This is where Galatians 5 verses 16 and 17 comes into play. It says in verse 16, but I say, walk habitually in the Spirit, seek Him and be responsive to His guidance, and then you will certainly not carry out the desire of the sinful nature, which responds impulsively without regard for God. For the sinful nature has its desire, which is opposed to the Spirit, and the desire of the Spirit opposes the sinful nature. For these two, the sinful nature and the Spirit, are in direct opposition to each other, continually in conflict, so that you as believers do not always do whatever good things you want to do. Okay, so habitually walk in the Spirit, got it. How do you habitually walk in the Spirit? When I think about walking in the Spirit, I think of doing things with God. We typically are really good at calling out to God when we are in need, but as soon as the crisis is over, we tend to put God back on the shelf and we kind of leave Him there, except for emergency situations. How about this? Try spending time in the Word with God, doing things with God, but not just having your time in the Word with God every morning in your set time, but what about continually throughout the day? Habitually, one might even say, spending time with God all throughout your day. Revisit the same verse and chapter that you started in the morning. Sometimes we have our devotion time and then we think it's okay to coast on that for the rest of the day. All I'm suggesting is that instead of doing that, you read the Word in the morning and then you come back, maybe revisit the same verse or chapter. And then, later on in the evening, the same thing, come back to it. Give it a chance to internalize and to set in. We can have the same mentality with our prayer. Instead of just praying in the morning, come back, continue to talk to God throughout the day. I could go on, but I want to leave you with this. We know that it can be hard to fight off temptation and sinful desires, and we also know that we have a strategy that we can put in place in order for us to overcome this. So why wouldn't you want to use that? Today I want to challenge you to habitually walk in the Spirit. Be led, guided, and instructed. Have a great day.